February 22nd, 2022. Would you all please rise and salute the flag with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Councilman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Glover made the second.
Second by Mr. Glover. Without objection, we will approve the agenda. Okay, seeing none, moving on. Approval of the minutes for the January 18th, 2021 meeting. I'm assuming everybody's had a chance to review those. We have a motion to approve those minutes. Moved by Mr. Glover. Second by Mr. Dawson. We have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Councilman. Without objection, we will approve the minutes for January the 18th. Okay, seeing none, brings us to citizens' comments. Jerry, we have citizens' comments? Anybody in the room?
There's no one in the room at this time to make citizen comments.
Okay, very good. Moving on, that brings us to item number 7 on the agenda, updates from Assistant County Administrator, John Bunce. Mr. Bunce, your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Hervishon. Good afternoon, everyone. Just a few noteworthy items about what's happening in the finance division before we get into numbers and financial statements and all that fun stuff. Human Resources today, as a matter of fact, along with several other departments, are attending a job fair at USCB. And they will also be participating in a career day at Beaufort High School on March 24th, as well as other departments from this division, including Register of Deeds, Assessor, and CFO Finance. All will be speaking with the next generation of students who will make up our workforce on opportunities that are available to them to help guide their next steps in their education and or training paths and possibly a future with our organization. The Register of Deeds office, along with communications, recently ran a reminder across all of our media outlets, including gas station TV, that a free service called Property Fraud Alert is available to all Beaufort County property owners. All you have to do is go to the ROD webpage, sign up for email alerts, and anytime there's a transaction involving your property, you'll get an email on that. Of course, you all know about that, but with ads running on TV and radio these days, with companies wanting to sell a product, we just wanted to remind our citizens that you do have this free service available here at the county. On March 15th, our registrar, Mrs. Green, will be giving a presentation to the Bluffton Men's Fellowship at Rose Hill. That will be regarding deed fraud as well as electronic title issues. So very happy that Ms. Green is getting out into our community and doing some of those things. I want to give a shout out to a couple of people in our finance department. Sue Simpson, who prepared 4 batches of W-2s for Beaufort County, Ladies Island, St. Helena Fire District, the Pesky Island Fire District, and Bluffton Township Fire Department, as well as Janet Andrews for preparing the 1099s for Beaufort County. That's a huge job, and a big thanks to those 2 individuals that got everything out by January 31st. That's a mammoth undertaking. And you're going to hear from Hayes as well as from Pinky, but if you all have no questions for me, I'd like to wrap up this update by asking our finance director, Denise Christmas, to come forward and say a few words concerning some changes to our travel expense form.
Hello, all. Thank you, Dale. So, our travel expense or our travel reconciliation form right now, as of today, to me, it's a little confusing. So I thought I would revamp it and give it a fresh new look. I've been told by finance staff that it's been in place and implemented for a number of years. They were thinking maybe 15 years, I don't know, maybe more. So what I did was I revamped it. I sent it out to Sarah and Whitney, Eric, Hayes, Dale. I talked to Janet Andrews in our office about it, as well as Lori Sexton in our office, and Hayes, and we all agree that the new form looks more user-friendly than our outdated form. So that's what's up on the screen right now is an addendum to our travel policy. What I did is I took the handbook and found the travel policy, and so I cited which page we are amending. So in red are the changes to the travel policy, and mainly the changes encompass the areas of the rates, the subsistence amounts. Currently, we use the GSA rates. So employees have to go out and research where they're traveling by putting in their zip code to gsa.gov and find out what the subsistence is every time you all travel. So by eliminating that one step could save a lot of time. And so what we did is we put in the new policy that the per diem rate will be for breakfast, $12, lunch, $17, and dinner, $26. And that totals $55 a day. That is consistent with the GSA rates anytime you all travel. I searched just about all of the top cities in South Carolina, as well as Charlotte and Atlanta and such, and it's right in line with that. So feel free to go out there and test it too, to make sure that you all are in agreement with changing those rates to that. So, like I said, in red, I wish I would have brought my red paper so I could follow along, but I did not. Mine's black and white. So,
let me know if you want me to go up, down.
Okay.
I have all of your documents in this one document.
okay, if you can go back up to the top, please.
Okay.
Let's see what that first change was. Okay, so in the existing policy, it did not have in there, it wasn't specific as to what travel arrangements are and what we require. So I put in red, travel arrangements, we're talking about registration fees and hotel accommodations so they may or may not, be paid for with a county P card. So right now, we're having you guys fill out a travel advance request, write a check, through AP, and it does, cost a lot of time. And money, of course, because every time you write a check, it costs. So that would save some time and money, resources, by paying for those items with your P card. So when you guys come back, the second item in red, you have 10 days from the time you return from travel, from your trip, to return your receipts and to fill out the new travel expense reconciliation report so you guys can get reimbursed for your mileage and your subsistence. And so the next, down to page 47, the next section in red, for overnight trips, per diem, is either paid in advance upon return. So if anyone needs an advance, then of course we will advance the money. If not, you
Quick
just
question.
fill out this. Yes, sir?
10 days, is that arbitrary or that's based on?
It's just norm in the other two counties I've worked for. It was just 10 days
Oh, okay.
always with those two counties, but we can change it to
Okay.
20 or 30, whatever you guys
Okay.
want to do. Yeah.
Okay.
So just let me know and we can do whatever you guys decide on.
No, I was just wondering, that's all. Somebody like me would probably never get reimbursed because I sure wouldn't meet that 10 day.
Well, we might need to change it then.
No, you don't. You don't.
We don't want to change it too far past. We definitely don't want to go over 30
No,
days
I
because
just-
it may cross over in fiscal years.
Yeah.
So, but we can up it to 20.
No, leave it 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and so the next section in red, if a check is being printed for reimbursement opposed to EFT payments to employee's bank account, please specify if the check is to be mailed, sent in her office, or held for pickup. I don't think that was in the policy as it currently is adopted, so we want to add that language there. And if per diem is issued in advance to an employee who can no longer attend training, please return the check to finance. Do not allow an employee to cash the check and give money to another employee, that messes up our records tremendously. So we would want the money back, either the check returned or either the cash paid to the treasurer's office and finance notified. Our employees are required, and we put this in there, the employees are required to attend conference or training sessions which justify said travel and expenses. Abuse of the travel policy could result in disciplinary action. So I'm sure you guys are of the same opinion as I am. And Hayes and I and Dale were, fiscally responsible for the county's finances and welfare. So we definitely do not want employees abusing travel and acting like it's vacation, right? So we definitely pay for employees to go to these conferences and training for that reason, for conferences and training. So mileage will stay the same with the addition of a little bit more wording in the paragraph. So it's mileage will be reimbursed at the IRS rate, and that's what you guys have right now. The rate right now is 58.5 cents, and they change that every January. Mileage may be verified through the finance department through tools such as MapQuest or Google Maps and things like that. And there's your rates, breakfast, lunch, and dinner with the total. And then a detailed hotel receipt. So we don't want a hotel receipt with just the total. It needs to be detailed per night, so we can get that rate per night to plug into the form. Meals which are included in your registration or training are not reimbursable under any circumstance. For instance, if an organization provides lunch for one of your days of training and that is spelled out in your registration agenda, then you won't get reimbursed for that meal since it's already provided for you. Is that it, or is there more to that? Okay, so that is the old form, which has multiple boxes separating lodging, meals, and mileage. And then if you keep going down, and then there's the new form where it puts all of it just in one box. So you've got your dates, and you're going from Beaufort to Myrtle Beach or wherever. The miles you traveled from, and then the dates. If you were there 5 days, you would have 5 different dates. And then at the bottom, you would put from Myrtle Beach to Beaufort, back to Beaufort with your mileage. And then there are formulas built into all those cells, and it should calculate everything for you.
On the form, you do not have a block, the section that says what time I leave.
Okay, so, all right, so above the big box is a small box, and it has on there, if you depart before 6:30 a.m. or return after 11, then it gives you that subsistence. But I see what you're talking about. We need to add a column for the time. I've never had that at other counties, but you know what? That's a great point and a great suggestion, and I will be glad to add that column.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
so-
you assume if I eat breakfast, I left before 6:30.
Yeah, assuming you're exactly right. So it's not even on there. So yeah, we can definitely put that on there.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was a good catch. Appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Larry.
With regard to your allowances for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if the lunch are they itemized expenses, by the way, or is the claim made for the amount that's available?
Okay, they are itemized on your travel reimbursement form when you return, but it's not. So the subsistence amount is a fixed amount. So it is 12, 17, and 26. So if you go over and under, it's not going to matter because you're not required to turn in meal receipts if you're traveling overnight.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Other questions or comments from the committee?
Stu has a question.
Yeah, it looks like this is kind of set up for trips for the most part. Can we also keep a monthly log of mileage and turn it in?
Yes, and I think you guys have a separate form for that.
Okay,
Is that
that's
right?
fine.
Isn't impacting that.
Yeah, okay, not
So-
impacting that one.
Yep, that's
Okay,
right.
great, thank you.
Totally separate. That's right.
As soon as you make any changes, will you send out the new form? Because obviously
will.
some of us are traveling today.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure will. I'll modify that when I get back, and then I'll send it right back out to Sarah so she can send it to you. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
very good.
I spent all weekend putting one together. It has footnotes and asterisks and receipts, and everything you can imagine on it. I hope you'll say this doesn't take effect until at least after
Tomorrow.
today.
We do
Okay,
yours, it's okay, we always redo yours.
Okay.
It's okay. Aw.
okay, well, thank you. Any more
Thank you.
questions?
No, thank you
Good job.
very much.
Good job.
Okay, you're welcome. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Have
for
a
that
good day.
update.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Clearly an improvement. Very much appreciated. That moves us to number 8 on the agenda, discussion and presentation of year-to-date financial statements for fiscal year 2022. Mr. Williams, take it away.
Thank you, Councilman. How are y'all doing today? I'm going to give y'all a brief overview of the January financial statements. The overviews are on page 8 and 9 of y'all's handouts. We're tracking kind of where I thought we should be. Our revenues that we've collected to date are about 85% of budget. For the year that we've completed, it should be at about 58. The driver behind that is we collected the majority of our property tax revenues. We actually collected 95 million of the $100 million budgeted. So that's really driving where we are as far as collections of revenues. We also, there's some revenues that are down, licenses and permits and intergovernmental revenues continue to lag. I'll speak specifically to the excuse me, intergovernmental revenues. We just got our second quarter check on Friday for $1.8 million. That's why this continues to lag. They used to be the quarter would close, and then by about the 20th of the following month, we would get those revenues. Since the census, it's been about 2 months. So it's causing a lag. It'll catch up by year end. We'll do an AR at the year end to catch it all up. That brings me to expenses, which are on page 9. Yes, sir.
Speak to the issue of license and permits, because it is down by a total.
It is. So business licenses are coming in right now.
Okay.
So we should see that number change. It'll adjust by the year end.
Gotcha.
So it'll keep tracking January, February, March. And so that number, you should see it slowly catching up.
So you're not concerned about it at all?
I'm not concerned. Most of these are the revenues are time specific, like the property taxes are due January 15th. So, I'm not really concerned. Well, I mean, I'm always concerned, but July through November gives me a lot less heartburn than when I'm at January 15th, and there's not what I think should be in there.
Okay.
But yeah, it should. Edgar Stevens is really in the process of collecting everything right now, so it should turn around by the end of the year.
Gotcha.
Good point. Good point. Our expenditures are tracking kind of right where we thought they should be. We've completed about 58% of the year, and we've expended 57%. There aren't a whole lot of outliers if you look. It is kind of it's a good budget, guys. Good job, good job, Whitney. Good job, myself. It's where it should be. So, it is tracking. There are some outliers, but we're good. We're good there. And then I have the detail on page 10 through 13. And so, but if y'all have any any further questions, I'd be happy to go over it with you. Okay.
Yeah, I do think it was a good budget, as long as you're not spending the budget.
I won't make any promises, Council, by the end of the year. So.
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Brian Flewelling here. On the revenue and expenditures detail, I'd appreciate it if you'd have the percentage the same way as you do in the other sheets. Just giving us the variance. It's a little hard for us to pick out the variance.
A percentage of, okay, yes, sir, I can do that. I'll have that for the next round.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions from the committee?
And I'd like to speak Councilman Flewelling's point. I'm here to serve y'all, so if there's a schedule or a fund or something that y'all want to see in a different light or see in light at all, please let me know, contact me, and I can shed light on it. So anyway, that's all I have, Councilman Herbershon.
Very good. Thank you for that presentation. Very well done. Item number 11 on the agenda, update from Budget Director Pinky Harriet on the fiscal year 2023 budget process.
We skipped 10.
Skip 9.
Sorry, I did not scroll far enough. My apologies. Item number 9, that's A2. Presentation of the fiscal year 2021 annual comprehensive financial statement.
Yeah, so we have our annual comprehensive financial report here, all 216 pages. David Irwin, who's a partner in charge from Baldwin and Jenkins, will be giving a detailed overview of it at the next council meeting. So I'm not going to bore y'all to death twice with it. So I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights as I see them. And if y'all have any questions, I can ask them and try to answer them. First, I need to thank all my staff. I need to thank, and other departments within the county, because doing a 216-page document, I'm good, but I'm not that good. My staff helped a lot to get this done in a timely manner. Obviously, we've done it earlier than we have in the past. We set more goals for ourselves for next year to get it done even more expeditiously. But yeah, my staff, this wouldn't be here without them. So I needed to do that. As I stated before, our external audit was performed by Baldwin and Jenkins. They issued what the layman's would call a clean opinion. When I was an auditor, we'd call an unqualified opinion, but which is good, which they didn't find any material weakness, any deficiencies, internal controls, or any reportable conditions. The biggest thing that I wanted to highlight was the general fund had a change in the fund balance of about $17.8 million, which was due to a lot of 2021 was just a weird year with COVID. Everybody was pulled back. People didn't spend money. We made more money than we thought than we had projected. It was kind of all over the board. I wouldn't expect to see this going this large of a carryover going forward in the future. I think this is just a one-off. Everything's because of COVID. So then I wanted to point out that we had 4 findings and question costs in the 2020 audit. As of this audit, they were all resolved, all 4 of them. So we cleared up all those issues. And then the big news is that we didn't have any for this year. So that's a really good thing. I think that the finance department, budget department, everybody are headed in a very positive direction, and I'm looking forward to get there. But David Irwin will do a much more detailed dive on this. I just wanted to kind of hit the highlights, and if y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Any questions on this agenda item from the committee?
Looks like we're clear up here as well.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Hayes. That takes us to item number 10, discussion regarding forensic audit. This will impact if the county could reduce expenses and save money by using internal personnel to perform the actions that would be performed in the forensic audit. And that is Hayes or Mr. Greenway.
Yeah, this is, I just want to make sure that the committee understands the magnitude and the cost of this. This is going to be something that is going to be very costly to the county if you all undertake this. It's going to be very costly and consuming of staff resources. We at the staff level do not really think that it's necessary. We've hired people, or we have people in place now that can manage our fixed assets moving forward. And we would recommend that you all let us do that for the year and not do this audit and save that money, because we think we can correct whatever issues there might have been in the past regarding the situation. So that's my recommendation.
Questions from the committee?
No, and I'm in absolute agreement with that. Just so everybody understands, a forensic audit is a very specific audit. That is where you're actually hiring a firm because you expect you are going to wind up in court. And we're nowhere near that. We just want to audit some practices that we've done in the past to ensure that we're doing everything correctly. So we shouldn't be using the term forensic audit.
Have some comments, please.
Sorry?
I'm not sure what's causing this concern. I've heard of it in 3 years. I think if there is any concern, it's certainly a lot easier to develop a template internally and have the department heads provide whatever an inventory is on hand of the items that we are seeking clarification on. And then someone can review those internally and see if there's anything that causes them any heartburn. But I don't agree that we need to have another firm come in, nor do we need to assemble a team of inspectors to go around and conduct an inventory department by department. I think it's a waste of resources and a waste of time, and I concur with the chairman.
Other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, I'll take a bite at this one. So where this came from was the internal or the outsourced internal audit, as I call it, that was conducted and finished sometime at the tail end of 2021. And one of the issues that they identified was that there was no fixed asset listing previously maintained. Now, from my perspective, and I'm guessing from the perspective of the average taxpayer, a lot of the tax money that we collect goes towards stuff, fixed assets, vehicles, equipment, computers, the list goes on and on and on. But from my perspective, it's not a good thing for us to sit here and say, hey, we spent your money, but we don't know where it is and where it's sitting. I don't think that forensic audit is necessarily a great thing to undergo. It comes with a whole bunch of negative connotations. It's hard, it's expensive, but I think it's the right thing to do for the taxpayers, because we can say to the taxpayers with certainty from an outside party, this is what we spent your money on, this is what we still have, this is what we don't have, this is where your money went. So I think from an accountability perspective, it's a good thing. It's a good thing from a transparency perspective for the taxpayers as well. I don't think that what we should do after we have an internal audit that flags such a huge deficiency is say, oh, everything's fine, we'll go ahead and we'll audit it ourselves. I don't think from a transparency and from an accountability perspective that is an appropriate way to go, my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Can
Can I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Wrong chairman. I'm very familiar with internal property controls that can be done. It's my understanding the county didn't have a system before. I think that's what this pointed out, that we needed internal property controls. I think it can be done internally with oversight by the county administrator, who is ultimately responsible anyway. And I don't see the added expense necessary, but I do think this will institutionalize what we needed, which was internal property control. And it will take work, but we can do it, I think it can be done internally.
We in the past didn't have anyone on staff that was capable of being able to do this. You all have corrected that. You authorized us the funds to hire several people back in the fall or earlier this year. I can't remember exactly which now. Late fall, I believe it was. So we have somebody now that can do this for us. If we did have the audit and it did turn up that we were missing stuff, I don't know what we do about that. It's just going to say we're missing, a printer or, a hammer or a shovel or something. It could, or a lawnmower, but I don't know what we're going to do about that, because that stuff could have been missing for many, many years. So I don't know what purpose it would serve. We're going to correct it moving forward. We're going to develop a fixed assets list, and we will make sure that we have that stuff available in the future.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if we did an audit and there were things that were missing, then there would be an adjustment that would be made in the books that would flow through to the CAFR, and then we would be telling the public, hey, this is what happened. This is what actual fixed assets are. We've made an adjustment. Here's why, and here's how much it is. Is that correct?
Yes, you are correct. He had to bring the accountant up here to respond. Just to add a little more context, we have had people on staff in the past that were able to manage a fixed asset listing inside of our software. However, Back in 2020, we lost 2 people in finance, one of those being Alicia and the other being one of our accounting supervisors. Both of those employees were the 2 that were responsible for maintaining our fixed assets listing inside of our accounting system. So when they departed Beaufort County, it took some time, let's see, a little more than a year now, for us to replace people that possessed those skills and whose focus was fixed assets. So that was the reason we were dinged on the internal audit. It wasn't that we never had anyone doing it, that we lacked a passion for keeping up with it, or that we wanted to be, vague or obscure in our accounting or tracking of county's assets or anything like that. It was simply one of those vacancies that took a while for us to fill and to devote staff time to doing it. Now we have that, which is why we think we can carry on with this recommendation without having to go through an entire internal audit. So that was the recommendation, the reason for that recommendation.
One more question. Can you point me to the page in the agenda packet that has the amounts of the RFPs that we received back?
I don't know that off the top of my head. Do you happen to have that, Brenna?
RFPs for.
Are you wanting to know which firms responded and kind of an amount? Okay.
Yes, because the assertion is that.
I'm going to let Dave Thomas come and respond to you as well, since he chiefly facilitated that RFP or Q.
Okay. But is it in the agenda somewhere?
I believe it is, but I think she's finding it for you.
Was it submitted? If it was, then it is. That submitted as backup?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I'm Dave Thomas, Director of Purchasing. There were 2 responses. One was around the $80,000 phase, and it wasn't as intense. Now, remember, this is a forensic audit that they're going to look at everything over $5,000. And the way it was written, we wanted them to look and provide the service to look at not only equipment, but also real property. So the second bid that we received was like $188,000, and that did not include everything. So if this is something you all want to do, it's going to take a lot of money.
Thank you for that. But the question about whether or not it's on the agenda, I'm curious about.
We have 2 questions, one from York and one from Stu.
Oh, okay, thank you. I was never in, I never thought we were looking at a forensic audit. I was more in favor of an audit review to make sure that we are following policies and procedures in our system. So that's the kind of audit that I would have wanted to see. And in one where by having an oversight group or whatever, somebody inside in the system or somebody outside the system need to tell us we're doing something wrong, and not be afraid to say that to us as a council. If you got staff on board that would pinpoint and say, Dave is doing something wrong and I told him to stop and he's not doing it, and bring that forward, that's the kind of thing that I want. I don't know whether you have that in staff. So when we talked about an audit, that's the kind of flavor I was looking for, so that, if you have somebody like Mr. Greenway, who's your immediate supervisor, and he's doing something wrong, but you don't want to tell nobody about that because you fear your job, I think as council, we need to know that. And somebody on the outside may be willing to do that other than you. That's where I come in at. But, whether we do it or not, that's another story, but that's where I was. I wasn't looking for no forensic, because I wasn't looking for us to find every I and every T out there in the system and tell us that you're missing a T somewhere because it wasn't crossed. I wasn't looking for that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Next one was Stu, Chris.
Mr. Rodman, go ahead.
Yeah, I do believe we're on the right track to catch up internally what you need to do. But I do think, if you run across a case like half the lawnmowers have disappeared, it may lend itself at some point in time to a forensic audit. But if we get to that point, it ought to be an executive session so we know what it is, and we go forward, because really, as Joe said, it's pretty much criminal what you're looking for when you go the forensic route. And they're very specialized people in the audit industry that do that.
Yeah, one comment I would say, the reason we are doing this is actually twofold. One, we're setting a dollar value of things that we think are very important to us. And those really have depreciation values, and those are the things you tag. Everything else below that becomes what is called a consumable. We used to tag all computers, but then when computers became so useful as far as you used them and then you threw them away, they became a consumable. So that's the kind of audit I would expect we should be doing, is every so often we take a physical inventory for insurance purposes, because our insurance is dependent upon that, and depreciation, where are they? We have so many buildings. So, the chairs in here are here today. That doesn't mean they're going to be here next year. They might be someplace else. But when you did an audit, if you had an outside company come in and physically audit everything, they go through and they tag everything. So I think we're on the right track. I think we're all looking for the same thing, is let's find out where things are that have been missing for maybe the last year and a half, and get a program that we keep track of everything.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, just I think to make everybody feel more comfortable, we have been maintaining a list on our software, which is Munis, that covers all our assets over $5,000. On our smaller assets like computers, we do tag those. We do electronic, and you'll see tags on your computers in front of you.
Right.
We do track those, but like you said, at the end of the day, 5-6 years down the road, those computers aren't worth much. We do sell them sometimes in auction. We erase everything, hard drive, and sell them, but it's just not worth a lot of money.
Right, yeah. So I'm of the opinion that internally, we can accomplish this.
Okay, so this was a discussion-only item. The general sense I'm getting from council is that we do not want staff to move forward with the internal audit, so we can move on. I will make one final point, though. It is alarming to me that we started with the assertion that this item was too expensive, and that dollar figure was not presented to us in the agenda packet, and we started from the assertion it's too expensive without having any sort of quantification of what that actually means. So I would like to make that point, but we can move on, which takes us to item number 11 on the agenda, update from Pinky Harriet on the budget process. Take it away, Pinky.
Well, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Well, I just wanted to give you a brief update on our fiscal year 23 budget process. Currently, as you well know, we are preparing a 3-year CIP plan to incorporate in fiscal year 23. And as of now, the committee has met on several occasions and ranked the projects. We are preparing the draft CIP book for administration to review for modifications. And once those modifications are complete, we will present to council a full list of funded, partially funded, and unfunded projects that have been submitted recently for the capital improvement plan. During the fiscal year 23 regular budget process, I should say, we have now received all of our departmental budget requests for fiscal year 23. We're reviewing all of the requests and the submissions and getting clarifications from department heads. We are also continuing to work with finance closely to condense our chart of accounts, moving, as you recall, last year we did a lot of cleanup in our general fund. We're moving on to some of our other funds to try to consolidate our chart of accounts. We're also working on revenue projections for the upcoming fiscal year. We have learned that the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office has issued a memo on millage rate increase limits for fiscal year 23 of a 4.7% increase due to CPI increasing from calendar year 2020. That is also the percentage that Revenue Fiscal Affairs will be using to calculate millage increase limitations plus any applicable increase in population as well. So that's currently where we stand. Is there any questions I can answer for council?
Any questions from the committee? Nope. Anybody in the council chambers? Nope. All good. Very good. Thank you, Ms. Harriet. That takes us to item number 12 on the agenda. Recommend first reading of an ordinance for approval of fiscal year 2022 local accommodations and local hospitality tax grant awards. That will be Shannon Milroy.
Good afternoon. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look at the applications that were sent out and our recommended awards, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about any of this.
Questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I have one.
Yeah. And then York is next.
Mr. Dawson, then Mr. Glover. Go ahead.
As I look at the applications that were submitted, down at the bottom, the Tabernacle Baptist Church for the completion of the Harriet Tubman Monument, the response was that it's not being funded because the project doesn't meet the scope or fit the scope. But once completed, then they can apply for ATAX. Can you elaborate on why the position is that it doesn't fit the scope? Can you give some clarification there?
Sure. In discussions, it was sort of discussed that the statue itself perhaps would not be as big of a tourist draw for the amount of money they were asking for. They did have some funds in their request for marketing and advertising of the statue to bring folks here once it is built. So the comment on the spreadsheet is related to once the statue is completed, we could award some marketing and promotions funds for that tourism of the statue.
Yeah, we didn't believe that the statute was a covered eligible expense under the ATAX ordinance that we have.
All right. Okay. All right.
Mr. Glover?
Thank you. Is sounds like that's more subjective right now than it is actually based on any procedure that we have done in the past. Is it?
I'm not sure that I fully understand your question, but what we did was we took the code for what are allowable expenses for these funds and compared that against the application about them justifying how it would generate tourism for Beaufort County and made those determinations.
They do not at this time have a documentation to say to you that X amount of people do right now tour the Robert Smalls bus on their facility, and next door to that would be the Harriet Tubman monument, and you have that type of tourist generated. They don't have those numbers, but is that what you're looking for?
Yes, there's a lot of applicants that include, here's how many tourists we've seen this year. We expect it to increase by X amount by implementing this project. And some applications have much more detail than others.
Sure. Right. I can tell you that there's a lot of activity there with the Robert Small bus. Next door to that would be the Harriet Tubman Monument, which will again generate even more flow of tourism in that area. But I can tell you that I don't think the church at this time has actually, I don't think they can do that to tell you exactly how many people actually stop by there, because people pass by there all the time. They're not counting them. Nobody's out there counting them. But they are constantly looking at the bust of Robert Smalls, and this particular monument for Harriet Tubman would even increase traffic down that area. So I don't know how to measure that. I don't know how they would measure that to make them eligible. But promoting it is one thing. Having that monument there to me means that we are really investing in that community at that site. And one of the things that I found very disturbing, and I'll say it, was that when they had the bus of Robert Smalls, that was not the first site for that bus. Nobody wanted that bus. And Tabernacle stepped up and said, we'll put it here at the church. I hate for this to go down negatively at this time. So I reserve some inclusion of that request at this time. So I probably will vote negatively to the recommendation with that caveat there being said. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's clear that this is a little bit beyond just being able to prove numbers as the number of people that would go to the site. It boils down to the local tax ordinance. It says that the only thing that are eligible are cultural, tourism, recreation buildings or facilities. And, you know, we're not sure that a statue.
Did you look into that?
Or a monument would fit the definition of either a building or a facility. You all as county council, whenever the recommendation was made to me, I basically felt like it was not an issue that we could fund for a statue. You all as council, if you want us to allocate some funding to that, you have the right to say, we think this is a facility, this is a building. If you feel that that is if a statue comports with that definition, because there is really no definition in the code, in the local ordinance that I saw that talked about a building or facility. Typically, in my mind, a building or facility is something that's, you know, got a roof on it, things like that, not an individual
I would
statue.
appreciate if you would actually research that for me, as far as a definition and whether it could be, because I would hate to put this council in jeopardy because of this, but I sure would like to know that
We can do some more look into that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council?
Chris, still here. Alex, go ahead.
Jane first and then Stuart.
Oh, okay.
After
I think
you.
you raised your.
That's all right, after you. Ladies first.
I think I understand, but why it wasn't selected. Annual book sale for Friends of Beaufort Beaufort Library, but I didn't understand the reason. It said installation on a facility owned by another entity was questionable. Was that?
Their application was.
Which number is that?
Oh, which one is
The 13?
13.
13.
No,
Well,
I'm
it
sorry,
was
it's higher up on the list.
seven.
Number 7.
Mm-hmm.
Their application was to install permanent rain guards at a pavilion in
Okay.
the city of Beaufort Park, and we don't.
Got it. Yes, I got it.
It's not appropriate.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rodman.
Yeah, let me go back to the statute for Harriet Tubman. I don't know whether it fits or doesn't fit. It does seem to me, though, that she's an important part of our history in this county, and in some form, if we can help make it happen with some kind of a contribution or wherever we get the funds, I think something we ought to seriously consider.
I had another, Mr. Chairman, I have another question.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I know there was a private fund drive for the Harriet Tubman statue. Do we know how much they've raised to date in that private effort? Does anyone know?
I don't recall the specific number. I know their total budget for this was $502,000.
Okay.
And so they requested $297,000 from us, which would close the gap from the money they have raised versus the total cost.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments from council? And if not, can we get a motion?
I'll move approval.
Very good. Motion by Councilman Rodman. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Llewellyn. Without objection, we will go ahead and approve this. Do we have any objection?
I do.
Okay, Councilman Dawson, we can go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Glover.
Okay, Glover and Dawson, are those the two no votes on this item? Okay, Sarah, a little help. I think that puts us at 5-3.
Who's the third?
6, right?
6-3.
Yeah.
6-3. Very good. Okay.
No, 6,
Who is the third?
6-2.
Yeah, 6-2.
7-2.
Do we need a roll call vote?
Please, that always helps.
Okay, let's do that. Councilman Rodman.
Yes.
Councilman Welling.
Yes.
Councilman McKellen.
Yes.
Councilman Dawson.
No.
Councilman Passman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Howard.
Yes.
Councilman Glover.
No.
And I am a yes.
And Councilman Somerville.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Somerville.
Yeah, so it is 7-2.
7-2. Okay, very good. That brings us to item number 13 on the agenda. Recommend first reading of an ordinance of the County Council of Beaufort County establishing and adopting an emergency medical services development impact fee. And that item will be covered by Mr. Greenway.
This is Chuck Atkinson, sir. I'm going to cover that one.
Okay.
And if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I would also like to cover item 14, which is general provision updates, Parks and Rec, Library, and Fire, since they're all fees. I'd like to cover both at the same time.
Yes, please do.
All right, thank you very much. So it has been a while since we have discussed these particular impact fees. The Tischler Weiss study was presented in August of 2020, so it's been a while. What I would like to do is start by recapping in very broad terms the Tischler Weiss study, in particular the 4 fees that I'm going to talk about, and then the 3 methodologies very quickly that are used and the service areas related to the 4 fees. So Parks and Rec, there are 2 service areas, north and south of the Broad. The cost allocation methodology for this is population growth. The library fee, there will be 2 service areas, one north, one south, and that is also population cost allocation, the methodology that's used to develop that one. EMS is a countywide district or collection area, and it uses 2 different methodologies. One is population for the residential fee, and then vehicle trips, or the trip generation tables, as we also know them, for the non-residential. And then fire is a little unique. We have the north of the Broad service area and the Bluffton fire service area. And that is, they use the EDU equivalent dwelling unit formulary or methodology for determining that. And I'll get into what that specifically means here in just a second. If you can bring up the first slide. Is there any way to make that bigger?
There you go.
So these slides I took out of Tischler Weiss's presentation that they made, and I thought they were relevant because they break down a comparison between the current fee that we have and then their methodology and what the new fee is going to be. So if it's okay, I'm going to walk through from the top left where it says north of the Broad service area. They used improvement cost per person, regional parks, community parks, neighborhood parks, recreation facilities, and they came up with a dollar amount based on projected growth and the CIP list, and came up with a $347 per person starting point. If you go down directly below that, you'll see residential, because this is a residential only fee. The second column is persons per household. The first column, and I intentionally did those backwards, is the square footage of the house. So if you take the improvement cost per person, the multiplier, persons per household, for 1,000 square feet or less, the maximum supportable fee for the total CIP list is $486, and currently that fee is $321. Now, I do want to note the footnote, which is footnote 1, that says fees listed, the fee listed is an average of the fees for the current service area north of the Broad. There are multiple current service areas. And anytime we talk about impact fees, it's very easy to get down in the weeds. And I'm going to try my best not to do that. But just as an example, the park fee for Bluffton area is $13.85 currently. For Ladies Island, it's $429 per dwelling unit, and this is any size dwelling unit. For Port Royal Island, it's $81, and for St. Helena and Fripp, it's $775. So that footnote represents something that's very important. It's the average, but when we get into the discussion of whether the fee is going up or down, it really depends on what area you're in. We're going from multiple service areas to just 2. So I wanted to point that out. So if we continue down that list, we can look at, just as an example, let's take a 2,000 square foot house. That would be in the housing unit square foot section 1751 to 2,000. The multiplier based on the improvement cost per person is 2.5. And that fee for that size house based on that occupancy is $868 as compared to the average of $321. But again, if you're south of the Broad, it would go down. If you're north of the Broad, depending on your area, it would go up. Everybody okay with that so far? All right, let's go over to the south of the Broad column. Same idea, regional parks, community parks, neighborhood parks, recreation facilities. The improvement cost per person is $235. Again, the 1,000 square feet or less, the multiplier is 1.2. The new fee would be $282, and the current fee is $671. Just another example, 2,000 square foot house, the multiplier is 2.2. The fee would be $517, and the current fee is $671. Again, that's an average of those areas. So the next slide is the library impact fee. This is also cost per person. So we have library branches, this is north of the Broad, library land, bookmobiles. The total per person dollar amount is $161. If we take the same 1,000 square foot, the multiplier is 1.4. The maximum supportable fee for that size house is $225. The current fee is $553. And again, this one is not an average because we only have one service area north and one service area south. So this is the true fee. So you're going to see a reduction in that fee all the way up to a 3,500 square foot house. And then once you get up over 3,500, it'll be a very modest increase north of the Broad. South of the Broad, the per person cost is $126. And if you look down the very right-hand column, you can see that that's a reduction all the way down the list, starting with a 1,000 square foot house. It'll be $151 versus $553. Is everybody okay with that? Mm-hmm. Great. So EMS, there's nothing to compare it to because this is a brand new impact fee. So this one, it is done 2 different ways. The residential, it is cost per non-residential vehicle trip and cost per person. So there's 2 different methodologies, one for residential and one for non-residential. We'll cover the residential first. So we took the EMS facilities and EMS vehicles, came up with a per person cost. That's $73. If you go to the right-hand column where it says residential, 1,000 square foot or less house is a $95 fee. If you go to the 2,000 square foot house, the multiplier is 2.32 and it's $169. So it's a nominal fee for that. The commercial or non-residential, which would cover retail, office service, industrial, and institutional, is covered by the trip generation tables, or the cost per non-residential vehicle trip based on each one of those occupancy types. So trips per 1,000 square feet for retail would be 14.35 times the 26 is $373. So that would be per 1,000 square feet of retail space. If you go down to institutional, the multiplier is 5.36, which would be $139 per 1,000 square foot of institutional space. So fire impact fees. Fire impact fees are calculated a little differently, and it took me a while to get my head around exactly what an EDU represents, because they use equivalent dwelling units for both residential and non-residential applications. The only way that I can really get my head around it is to say that it's an average house and with an average number of occupants. It just represents a placeholder. And then they use multipliers and formularies to extrapolate that out for the different uses. So we'll start with the residential. It is cost per EDU. The fire stations, this is north of the Broad, fire stations, admin, maintenance facilities, and fire apparatus. The total EDU is $1,178. So for residential, you would have a 1,000 square foot house, skip over the per person, then you go to the EDU, the multiplier for that would be half of an EDU. So that fee would be $601. North of the Broad, the current fee is $1,178, which would be a reduction of $577. If we go all the way down to a 2,000 square foot house, the multiplier would be 0.92 of that EDU, or that starting point. The maximum supported fee is $1,084 based on the CIP list for fire. The current fee, $1,178. The new fee would be $94. Everybody okay with that? One thing I do want to point out, and I apologize for not doing this earlier, the current fee, that was appeared to be a typo. I did not change their fee on their Tischler Weiss's PowerPoint because it wasn't mine. But the average, what they did is they took the EDU and put it in that column. The average currently is $482 for an average. So if you look back there will be an increase, but it's pretty nominal. But I just wanted to point out that $1,178, I think they took the average and then multiplied times a hazardous use instead of a non-hazardous use and came up with that number. Well, on the next page, the current fee is actually correct. This is Bluffton Fire District. Same thing. They developed the EDU. The EDU represents $953 for a housing unit size of 1,000 square feet. That is a 0.5 multiplier for the EDU. That gives us a fee of $477. The current fee is $481. That's a reduction of $4. If you go up to a 2,000 square foot house, the multiplier is 0.92. That's $877 would be the new fee, which is a $396 increase. So, all right. That's it for all of the fees. Is everybody okay with that so far? I know that's just mind-numbing, but one thing that staff looking at the ordinance, one recommendation that we wanted to include in this ordinance is an annual increase to offset for inflation. This is something that most of our impact fee ordinances do not have now. It's new, and I didn't want this to slide through. I want everybody to be aware of what it represents. I think Pinky mentioned that based on 2021 numbers, the CPI for 2023 is going to be almost 5%. So if this is included, depending on what inflation does, this could be a fairly substantial number every year. However, if we don't include it, inflation will outpace the fees, and there will be a huge delta over 5 years of perhaps 20-25%. And I know that's a large number, but looking at where we are now, we could have a huge delta over a few years. So that's why staff put that in there, but I didn't want to just gloss over it and have that be a surprise later on. So with that being said, it's a very long ordinance, a lot of changes, a lot of details. I will stop there. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Chuck, thank you very much for dropping this on us. I wish I had had a chance to review it over the weekend because I'm sure I'll have questions and ask for some refinements. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I don't think it's appropriate for us to be voting on this today. I think we need more time to evaluate it. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the committee?
Chris, Stu here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a good presentation, very comprehensive, easy to understand. I do think the inflation piece makes sense going forward. And my take is that this will be very favorable for affordable or workforce housing, which we're all concerned about. I do think, Brian, given that we have to have 3 readings, it would seem to me that it's logical to move it forward, and then if we have some major issues, we could bring it back to committee. So I will make a recommendation for items 13 and 14 for approval to go on to council at first reading.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Rodman. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Chris.
Second by Councilman McCollum. Discussion. Any other questions, comments, or concerns from the committee?
When everybody's done, I have another one, sir.
I think you're it.
I'd be interested in having a bit of advice from the legal department regarding the ability of council to obligate future councils for an increase without a vote. I don't believe that automatic CPI increases are allowable. I think that we've run across that in some other measure that we had a year or two ago, which escapes me at the moment. But I think that the advice that we got was that we couldn't obligate future councils for an increase without a vote. So we can require them to discuss a matter. In other words, we can put it on an agenda for next year's council meetings, but we can't require them to approve of something. So,
Councilman Somerville, I'm sorry, I missed your hand.
Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, did you call on me,
Yes.
Chris? Oh, yeah, thank you. Well, a couple of things. One is I think folks watching us think that if we pass an ordinance to implement an impact fee, that's a good idea, that it just automatically happens throughout the county. Passing an ordinance is just a small part of it. It's getting the municipalities to agree is what really counts. And I just want to go on the record as reminding everyone who's interested in listening to this that just because we pass it doesn't mean the municipalities will. And there are lots of examples around right now where we passed impact fees that we think as a body are needed, and municipalities just say no. So sometimes with a reason, sometimes without a reason. The second thing I would say is I think any fixed fee should be indexed for inflation, because it just creates a problem with the Never Land that we just entered in the last year. It's going to create a problem a lot quicker than it would have several years ago. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Kurt, I'm sorry, did you have something to add to the discussion?
I just wanted to say Mr. Llewellyn brings up a good point, and I'll be happy to think about that and research it and get back to council.
Very good.
If I may elaborate on the CPI, that language is in our current ordinance. If you recall, several months ago, well, it's been 2 or 3 years ago now, we've been dealing with this that long. We brought, when interim county administrator John Weaver was here, we brought before you all a proposal to raise the impact fees because of that CPI language in the impact fee ordinance. Previous staff had not done that for some reason. It was going to be a pretty big jump in the impact fee. So you all authorized us to wait until the impact fee study was complete before we raised the current impact fees using CPI. But that CPI language is in our current ordinance and has been for years. And I think it is legally and statutorily correct underneath the impact fee statute, or our impact fee consultant would have told us to remove that. So just for that, whatever that information is worth.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll provide a final comment, but I'm a little bit concerned. The items that Councilman Somerville and Councilman Llewellyn raised are a little bit concerning to me. I'm going to vote for this to move it forward to council, but I definitely do have concerns. Any other questions or comments from council before we go ahead and take a vote and we'll do a roll call vote? Okay, and the motion on the table is to approve items 13 and 14. Councilman Rodman, I believe you made the motion.
Yes.
Councilman McKellen,
Yes.
Councilman Dawson,
Yes.
Councilman Passman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Howard,
Yes.
Councilman Flewelling,
No.
Councilman Glover,
No.
and I will be a yes. I believe that is 8-1. Is that correct?
6-2.
6-2. Apologies.
I don't think I was,
Paul hasn't voted yet.
I'm sorry.
sorry.
Somerville.
Somerville votes yes.
The angle that I've got is kind of tricky, so I apologize.
7-2.
7-2. Thank you so much. All right, then moving on to item number 15 on the agenda, recommendation for contract award for external auditing services, RFP 120121 for Beaufort County to Malden and Jenkins.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, and I will second.
We know. We don't need this.
Fair enough. We have a motion and a second. Without objection, we can go ahead and approve this.
Thank you, sir.
We're good.
Very good.
You're pretty
Great job,
convincing, David.
Thanks, Dave.
Killed it on that one. All right, item number 16, recommend approval of a resolution for the acceptance of a grant award from the South Carolina Department of Transportation for the Pesky Island Ferry.
So move,
Feel free
Mr.
to do a
Chairman.
quick motion on that one as well.
So move.
Got a
Second.
motion by Mr. Glover.
Second by Mr. Flewelling.
Perfect. Without objection, we can go ahead and approve that as well. Is there any objection? Hearing none. Very good. Approved. And last item, appointment of Robert Bible to the Board of Assessment Appeals for a first term with an expiration date of 2026.
I'll make the
We have a
motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any objections?
No objection, just a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is one of those, if I remember back historically, where they don't have a lot to do in between assessments, and then they have a lot to do when there are assessments. And I do think with the rise in property values, some people are going to feel very good about the fact that it went up, but we may get a large number of objections. So you may want to give some thought to whether we need any temporary people or some temporary expansion of the committee just to make sure we work through the assessments appeals. And we may have looked at this in the past, I can't.
It expired in 2020, the raising the members, but it can be done by way of resolution, so I can email it out to y'all.
But I think it's something to think about, because I do think we're going to get a lot of appeals.
It's definitely an interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we can go ahead and approve this without objection. Are there any objections? Very good. Well, in that case, that is all business coming before the committee today. Thank you, everybody, and we are adjourned.
5 minutes, okay, Sarah? Yes, sir. Okay, 5 minutes, and we'll reconvene with public facilities.